I hope you're starting to see how all this works together. The wander round, we sell ourselves, we sell the dealership, and now it's time to sell the product. We do that in the value building stage. Now it's time to start closing. And like Tim said, the biggest challenge salespeople have with closing, the challenge I had in the beginning and the challenge most of you have, we don't know when to close and we don't know what to say. And that's why we have a consistent process. And I always thought my first 5 years that if you had a doctor, you sold them different than you did if you have a plumber. But the sales process doesn't work that way. It's always warm them up, select the vehicle, sell the dealership, sell yourself, go on that demonstration, sell the product, sell the hot buttons to Betty, sell the hot buttons to Bob, and then you start your closing sequence. It doesn't change no matter who you're with. It doesn't matter whether they're paying cash, whether they're financing, whether they're buying a used car, a truck, a boat, or a motorcycle. The selling process doesn't change, and I hope you're starting to see that. This is something that you can duplicate every time with every customer. If they're in a hurry, we bypass, we get back on track. No problem at all. So in this closing process, you've got to get these steps down. That's why you have to have that landmark so you know exactly where to start closing. And I wasn't really kidding about the smartphone thing. You can, even if just on your phone, put in the closing steps, a landmark, ask 5 quick questions, then go into the assumptive sold line. So let's start back with the landmark. What are the concerns or questions or key points you bring up in class?
Well, Joe, you're definitely right, okay? We're asking the wrong questions at the wrong time. The best time to start closing the sale, and just think about this for a second, is at the customer's emotional peak, when they're the most excited about the car. Now, that's definitely not going to be in the office when you're saying, hey, with $5,000 down, your payment's going to be $890 a month. I don't think they're going to be too excited about the car. Remember, we want to get that product commitment before we go for a financial commitment. So let's close at their emotional peak. Now, where is that? You guys tell me. If this was a graph and the basics were right along the graph, wouldn't the emotional peak be right on that last little part of the demo? You got to agree, right? You got to agree, Tim, that
Yes,
last
we
little
agree.
part of the demo, okay? So all we're going to do on that last little part of the demo, that last third, about a minute or two away from the dealership, is you just want to summarize all the major benefits that you know the customer likes about the car based on your first hour and a half with that customer. You're recapping their 20%, starting at that landmark, Tim.
And what happens when you start that recap? What's the point of
Let's
it?
get some yeses. Just remind them everything they like about the car, confirming. Look, hey, bottom line, you said a minute or 2 minutes out. Customer knows they're about a minute or 2 minutes out from the dealership.
Yeah.
They're thinking, uh-oh, they're going to ask us to buy. Sales guy's like, uh-oh, they know we're going to ask them to buy. And it's a nervous time at that point. And you need to make sure, we were talking about this today, that you got to make sure that as a salesperson, you don't change your body language, your tone inflection doesn't change. I mean, sometimes we just bow up, stiffen up, and when you bow up, stiffen up, can the customer tell?
Sure.
Relax, you got to be conversational right here. Just get some yeses. Man, I tell you what, guys, the car handles great, doesn't it? Yeah, it really does. And it's going to be nice getting 35 miles a gallon, isn't it? Yeah, just get their head on a hinge. Just relax. The customer's nervous. Don't you start getting nervous. And I know some of us are afraid of it, but man, if you're afraid, like we said before, can't hack it, grab your jacket, or whatever it is. So,
That's the neat thing about these basics, the way they're laid out. There's nothing to get nervous about. You're just going to go back and summarize. Wow, that drives good, doesn't it? Everything they've already agreed to. If you go back to the very beginning and we investigated to find those hot buttons, this is just that consistent process, moves forward. There's no need to be fearful. There's no need to get nervous or anything. It's just that next step. Well, guys, that sure drove nice, didn't it? And that's why you want that landmark. You've got to have that point, whether you're ready or not, that triggers it, and it's time to start asking those questions. Well, don't slow down for those railroad tracks. If that's your landmark, I want to show you something. You go thumpty-thump. That sure drove good, didn't it? Yeah, and it's going to be neat on those long trips, huh? And Betty, that seat's comfortable for you too, isn't it? It's just that natural flow. And then you're about 100 yards out, and it's time to use the sold line close.
Yeah.
And it's also just flows naturally. We just got them to say yes 5 times. Doesn't it sound like we found the perfect car or truck? So it's the assumptive part. Wow, it sounds like we found the perfect car or truck. You just said yes 6 times. Sound like we found a perfect car or truck. Go ahead and pull in that first driveway on the right, park in the sold line. I'll pull the keys. Nobody else can drive it. And then we ask our first real closing question, and I didn't even ask, we're going to put this in your name or the company name. And then we park the car and we keep progressing.
You know, that's a good point, okay? The thing about it is when I sold cars, keep this in mind, if you didn't tell them where to park it, when they came back on the lot, wouldn't they even ask you where they should park it? You know, and some of us, we do the opposite of what we're supposed to do. We say, yeah, is there any way you could pull it back in line for me right there and give me the keys so I can put them back in the key machine? Isn't that basically a physical action of not to close the customer? Listen, you got your 5 or 6 yeses. You're pulling back on the lot. They're looking for a place to park it anyways. Just say, hey, Bob, why don't you go and pull it up to the sold line? Yeah, it's actually right next to your trade. Grab those keys so no one else can drive it, and we'll go inside and finish up the paperwork.
How many times, I'm sorry, how many times do you hear from salespeople, that sounds kind of corny, I'm afraid to do it. I know some salespeople have told me they never have asked that question, and then somebody did and it worked, and they go, oh. Some people have gone and printed up their sold lines and stuck a post in the ground, but that's one of the easiest closes. People are so afraid, it's like seriously now, as that first objection you get. When you're pulling in the sold line, they say, well, I think we're gonna hold off. If you've done a good job and you have rapport with people, it's so easy to say, Bob, you're such a kidder. Seriously now, go ahead and park in the sold line, let's get this thing over with. I didn't even ask, I'm gonna register it in your name and the company name. Seriously now is such an easy close because it takes somebody who's this close, they just got nervous, so they went from this close to this close. Seriously now just wraps it back. You're such a kidder, quit playing around. Go ahead and park in the sold line, let's get this thing over with. And it's easy, it's that assembly, but you have to have confidence. And you can't have confidence if you haven't practiced, drilled, and rehearsed these skills.
Yeah.
So we just pulled into the sold line.
Yeah, a couple things. Remember, when you pull in, I always get guys in class, they'll be like, yeah, but if I do pull it in the sold line right next to your trade, I'll grab the keys, somebody else drives your new car, going to register one name or two. Well, I'm going to get objections right there. You're kidding.
That's the best time
I hate
to
to break it to you, 80% of the time you're going to get an objection right there. They will come up, but I promise you, if you are not confident in the sold line close, if you do not practice it, you're going to get more than 80% of the time you'll get an objection. Couple tips though when you guys practice this, and I just from working and practicing in class with guys. Make sure when you do the sold line, okay, your landmark is getting your yeses. Get the customer's head on the hinge. Car drove great, didn't it? Favorite color, isn't it? Kids got plenty of room in the back, don't they? Make sure it's a positive statement. Sounds like we found a perfect car. Not a positive question. You're not saying sounds like found a perfect car, doesn't it? Because then you could get a no at that point. It's a positive statement. Then you have your sold line hook. Go ahead, park it in the sold line right next to your trade. I'll pull the keys so nobody else drive your new car. And you always have to finish it off with that either-or question. How do you want to register it? Both names, or is it just going to be in one name? So when you practice, it's not a positive question, it's a positive statement. It's an action of pulling it in the sold line right by their trade, and how you're going to register it in both names or one, whenever you roll through that. And yes, you will get objections, but get good at the close first, and then we'll worry about the objections in other courses. But you just got to be confident. You got to know right here, you will get objections. You can use it seriously now. 4-step, there's a million different ways to go with it, but practice it.
The objections you get at this point, though, they're normal. They're fear objections. They're those excuse objections get off the lot. Well, or else they're serious. Well, I'm not going to trade if I don't get enough for my car, or I'm not going to do this if I can't afford the payments, or well, it's going to depend on price. Well, the answer to all those, of course, it does. And I'll get all those figures. Go ahead and park, and let's get some information, and we'll go inside and wrap everything up. It's again that confidence. You just have to have practiced, drilled, and rehearsed this so many times. I don't know if you can tell, but we've kind of practiced. And when you do, it's just that natural next thing that you say. So, and now we parked in the sold line. Explain action closes. We heard Tim talk about action closes, and he just talked about pulling in the sold line as being an action that equals, I know what I'm doing, I'm moving the sale forward. But I hear a lot of mental yell buts, even if I can't hear them. People are saying, yeah, but you need to ask them if they're going to buy it if everything works out.
Yeah.
How do these how do those 5 summary closes, the sold line, and these next dozen action closes, how do they override one if you would you buy it if kind of question?
Yeah, well, I like what you say on that, Joe. If you do it right, you should never have to ask them to buy, okay? An action close is just getting the customer to do something that equals I'm a buyer. Okay, so ask yourself this, guys. I mean, when we go in the office to work the deal, do you want someone who's thinking about buying a car, or do you want a stone cold buyer? I mean, I want to work a deal with a stone cold buyer, right? So I want to get as many action closes as I possibly can. And in real life, when Tim talks about this in the course, we need most of this information anyways, okay? So how do you keep control of the sale? By keeping the customer physically involved. So let's get the customer physically involved in helping us get as much information as we can off the car they're buying and off the car they're trading, and let's get them more seeing themselves as a buyer. We need to get them in this mindset. I think I'm really doing this. I think I'm really taking this home now. And if we can get them in that mindset, it's going to make everything else, including the negotiations, a lot easier.
Yeah, it's one thing we talked about, and we always talk about in class on the sold line. get them to park the car they're buying next to or as close to the trade as possible, so I can speed this process. I understand it's not going to be right next to it every time. I'd rather you double park it behind theirs. And yours looks better than theirs, but it's to get the customer doing these action closes. I need them to read the VIN, read the miles, exactly what I rolled through in the entire chapter, but it's you got to have your order. Use the weekly planner. Use whatever you're going to do. Here's what I want you to think about. Any information you're going to need once you sit that customer down to do your paperwork, that's what you're gathering there. Because you do not want to leave that customer alone once you bring them inside and start your negotiation. And once they pull that car in the sold line, one other thought I want you to remember, and I know I talked about it in the chapter, always remember at this point, slow kills. You need to be quick and efficient. Don't rush and don't hurry, but be quick and efficient as you're doing all these action closes. And be confident at the same time. And never look at them and say, well, you want to come inside and see what we can do for you? You do a great job up to there. Tell them how you're going to register it, all your action closes, and then you blow it with a 1 to 10 close or an if I could, would you? So
I think you hit it on the head. It's kind of like that speed bump. And you said, hey, we're really doing this.
Yeah.
It's when they make that mental decision that goes from I'm considering buying this vehicle or I might buy this vehicle if to we really are doing this. And then once that change happens internally, closing the sale is a piece of cake. Getting what you need in gross is a piece of cake. That's why in a different course we talked about keeping the gross intact. And if you've done everything correct, you haven't discounted anything, the gross is intact, and they just made that, hey, we're getting this. That's how you end up with 16% of the people paying sticker price, 30% pay what you ask, because you didn't close them. We haven't talked price. We never twisted their arm, made them say, I'd buy it if. Everything has just been a progression to equal. We're going inside, take care of the paperwork. We're almost done. And at the same time, they go, we're getting this. You know that, just be them for a minute. They also get this sense of relief. Wow, we are getting this. Betty, this is going to be fun. Let's go in and wrap this up. And it's just, you can feel it in the sale. You can feel the change actually happen out here. And now we got our action closes. We got our silent walk around. The silent walk around is one of those fun things. You're not going to go knock their trade and, whoa, I hope you don't want much for this thing. It's a piece of junk. You do that and you'll wave at them as they're driving away. But I always tell the story. I was going to sell a SUV I had, and I've had it for 5 or 6 years. I thought the thing was perfect. I knew what I wanted for it. And then I went out to wash it, and I normally have the guy wash it, and I went out to wash it that day, and I was shocked that there was a ding in the bumper back there. The paint's kind of scraped off. There were some dings on the side panel there, but they weren't dents. They were just, you know, the paint's gone away. The windshield had a star in it. By the time I got through washing this thing, it was worth $2,000 less. And that's what a silent walk-around's for. You don't say, wow, somebody nailed you there in the parking lot. You just walk up, touch the dent. They forgot about that ding too, because they've seen it every day for the last year and a half. They forgot about that star in the window. That happened a year ago. And they don't even see it. They see through it now. When you touch it, they see it again. You touch the ding, you touch the star. You use your informal tire depth gauge, and you stick it in that worst tire, and you hold it up, and there you go, oh yeah, I forgot about that too. Everything in here is part of that mental ownership process and that mental devaluation. It's not even devaluation, it's getting them back to real life on what their trades were. Yeah, it's a nice car, but it's not as nice as they thought it was before you parked it next to it and you started getting this information. And that silent walk around is one of the most critical parts. Why do you ask about maintenance and gas mileage?
Same, the negotiation. It is step 7 and 8. The action closes and the silent walk around are critical to being a good negotiator. And you guys will see in some other courses, in the negotiation course or even in the negotiation workshop. When I do a silent walk around and I find out about the dents, the dings, the bald tires, we use those as removable objections later on in the negotiation. And I hate to break it to you guys, but if you're not gathering that information, if you're not finding out about the dents, the dings, the star in the windshield, the bald tires, the cracked tail light during the silent walk around and the customer participating in that, then when you bring them inside to negotiate, you really can't.
They just
You
get
can't say,
defensive.
yeah, good news. We can give you $9,000 for your car. I just need you to fix the tail light, windshield, and replace the tires. Can you get those done today, or you want to come pick your car up next week and have those done? I can't do removable objections if I didn't do a silent walk around. And if I didn't find out maintenance information, I can't do a maintenance close. It hurts the 99.9% quality car close. Makes a new car versus trade. You're losing the ability to use 5, 6 different closes in the negotiation. You want to be a great negotiator, man, this step 7 and 8 are single-handedly.
I got the
setting
other
up
yeah
5
buts
closes.
coming up though.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm being the salesperson out here. You're not negotiating. Negotiation to me, my first 5 years meant drop and drop and drop and drop and split and split. We haven't heard him say any of that. We're talking about presenting and defending the numbers, having that ammunition that we need to close the sale, to explain why their car is only 9,000 instead of the 10,000 they wanted for it. Gas mileage is more critical every day. Gas mileage and gas savings is going to be more critical. Biggest mistake people make with the gas savings is they blow it on the lot. As part of the presentation, they talk on and on. Wow, this gets 30 miles a gallon, you're getting 15, you're going to cut your gas bill in half. Don't talk about it out there. Get that information in your silent walk around so that you can use it inside. And when you're $100 apart, all you have to do is find $100. And if they're saving 300 in gas, you just found it. But you have to set it up correctly. We miss all these opportunities to close easily, and it's all in the setup. In the wander around, we're building rapport, we're selling us, we're selling the dealership. In the demo, we're selling the vehicle. In the closing, we have to wrap everything together and use everything that we've learned. And that's why in another chapter, we talked about how you have to listen. And most people are waiting to talk instead of listening. So we don't even hear all these things. And these are the tools, this information that you gather. You don't need to go out there with the motive to sell a car. You just need to go out there with the motive to find out why this customer wants this car, and then just help them get it. It's not rocket science. We still have to close it. That final close. That final.
Well, bring them inside. You got to move them inside. Once you do silent walk around, gather maintenance information, fuel economy information. Don't look at them and say, "Well, you guys want to come inside and see what we can do for you?" Because that's, I mean, that happens all the
Yeah,
time.
sure.
It's because that's our normal speech pattern. That's what we've been saying as salespeople for years and years. Just look at them and turn around, walk to the dealership, and say, "Y'all want a cup of coffee or something cold to drink?" While we go inside and wrap it up.
yeah.
If you've done your job up to this point, they say cup of coffee, follow you in. What have they agreed to do?
Right.
Buy the car. You have a committed customer at this point. Now, here's a tip on that too. If I look at them and say, "Y'all want a cup of coffee or something cold to drink?" while we go inside and wrap it up, and I start walking inside and they follow me in, grab the cup of coffee or the soda or the bottled water on the way to your desk. Don't bring them in, set them down, then get up and leave them alone for another 5 minutes, and then come back, and don't bum $1 off them to buy them a soda, have your own money with you. But it's make that a transition from the lot, grab them a cup of coffee, set them down at your desk. And then when you sit them down at the desk, I know you're adamant about getting the customer signing things.
Yeah. Well, gosh, you got paperwork to do anyways on most car deals, okay? So you could use paperwork as a necessary evil to say, "Oh my gosh, we got all this paperwork to do," or you could use paperwork to help you close the sale. Anything I can fill out, anything I can get a customer to sign, anything that we can talk about in that office gets them more and more and more in the, I think we're really doing this. And that's what we're trying to do here, guys. We're trying to create what Joe calls TMO. Total mental ownership, okay? We're getting this customer in the mindset that they're taking this car home now prior to the negotiations so that the negotiations is gonna go a lot more smoothly, okay? Now, I'm not saying they're not gonna try to beat you on price or trade, and I'm not even saying that the silent walk around is a miracle worker, but it will chip away at their confidence on what they think their car is worth to make things easier for you in the office.
And when you talk about having people sign something, let's kind of recap. We went through the summary close. We got 5 or 6 yeses. We parked in the sold line. We got another one. We found out he's registered in the company, and then we got a dozen action closes. We said, "Come on in, let's wrap this up, coffee or something cold." Sounds like we have a pretty committed buyer. I used a simple insurance form, and you're probably going to redo these in finance. That's okay. But I wanted them to take a real quick test to make sure they understood why they were sitting in that chair. And I just pulled out an insurance form and I said, "Here, folks, if you would, just fill in your agent and sign that for me, and I'll be back in a minute," and hold out the pen. If they take the pen, there's no question that they know why they're sitting there. If they hesitate, "Whoa, we got an objection here. Should we try to negotiate, start dropping price to make a deal, or should we figure out what's going on here?" And that's that lead in. You hand them the pen and they go, "Well, and they look at each other. You got an issue here. It's time to deal with the issue." That's why you need to go through the course on handling objections. Everything has a process behind it. It's really easy to say, "Whoa, guys, it looks like you're hesitating. If you don't mind me ask, why?" And just handle the objection. It's not going to be a big deal. Well, and they'll give you whatever it is, but there's an easy process to take care of the objection too. The main point is, we haven't sold a car yet. This car is not burning gas. These guys aren't headed to finance yet. All we've done is set up a perfect sale. And now it's time to negotiate. And that negotiation has to follow this process step by step by step. It needs to be smooth. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be professional. And the last thing you want to do now, we've sold this car without ever talking about price. And we've sold it without ever getting them to say, yes, I'll buy the car today if everything works out. I really hope nobody's making you sign your name and say that. That just changes the whole flavor of it. So the last thing we want to do is go in there and get our manager to focus on a price-focused deal at this point. We sold the car. We sold Betty the benefits that she's looking for, the room for the soccer stuff, the entertainment system. We sold Bob everything that he needs his truck to do. Don't change the flavor of the sale by turning this into a price negotiation now. Just take those courses and go through those and go through the objection handling techniques. Again, it's like that perfect storm. This is the perfect sale. The setup is perfect. There's no tricks, no smoke and mirrors, no gimmicks. You found the car that's best for them based on what they told you. We didn't twist anybody's arm. There's no snookering anybody here. We just logically let this progress, and we are on the perfect car for them. And now it's time to negotiate. Anything else you can think of on this?
One thing, remember we talked about it in other chapters. We said you close on the car so you can negotiate for gross. That's exactly what this is. You're closing on the car. You're getting a commitment on the car. Now, it's not a matter of are they committed on the car. If you follow this process, they're committed on the car. Now it's just a matter of how much gross we're going to hold. Right. And now I can have a budget-focused negotiation because I closed them on the car. I negotiate for gross. And never forget, the customer's nervous about spending the money, even though they came there to spend the money. You have to be confident and make them feel like they're making the right decision. Goes back to that assumptive
Now
demeanor.
you brought up another word, budget-focused negotiation instead of price. That means when we closed, if they said, well, it's a lot of money, we just rephrase that to guys, it sounds like you're like me and everybody else, sounds like you're on a budget. And so other than fitness and the budget, is there any other reason we couldn't send you home in it? So we handled that objection, and now we're inside. We want to keep this negotiation on budget. Budget is terms. Budget's the money that comes out of your pocket every month. Budget's the money that you have to come up with. Budget's the payoff on your car that you have to deal with if it's too much. If we keep it a budget-focused negotiation, it's easy. It's easy to spread the terms out, not just in length, to go 36, 48, or 60, or 72, but it's easy to find money in the budget. That's where we talked about the gas savings close, the maintenance close, those kind of things. They all, again, work together to set you up for an easy negotiation, but you have to learn to negotiate. You have to learn to handle these objections and just keep moving the sale forward. You're this close. And even if you never learned anything else, you're so close. If you just don't mess anything up now, you got a deal.